I'm Daniel's big sister, Robin, also known as Bobby, and more recently, Yitz or Yitzy. I lost my brother a week ago to a horrible disease. I lost someone with whom I shared many memories despite a 10-year age gap between us. I lost someone I loved so deeply from the minute I laid eyes on him. A special love only felt between siblings. You see, after 10 years, my wish had finally come true. My parents gave me a sibling, and Daniel made me a big sister. A week ago, I lost a part of myself, but sadly, until that dreadful morning, I never knew how big a part it was until it was gone, leaving an emptiness that consumes my entire body. I can't believe that I'm speaking at my little brother's funeral. It's unimaginable. It's wrong. But I couldn't say goodbye without speaking up for him. Always the big sister, I guess. The day Daniel was born, our parents were overjoyed, but could not settle on a name. First it was Benjamin Max, then a few other names, and eventually by day 2 they chose Daniel Adam, thanks to the suggestion of Aunt Gail, and it stuck, as long as he wouldn't be called Danny. Perhaps the great naming debacle is why Daniel would have a nickname for everyone. Big Al, Alan, Mama, Jay, Weedy Ramallah, M Squad, Osty are just some of the loving names you called those in our family, and you had a special way to say each of them. With each name, it was obvious that you loved us fiercely. As a baby, you sure were cute, and all my friends adored you. But most of all, Mom and Dad cherished you. You were Dad's little pal, his shadow, and the two of you looked so much alike. From early on, we did everything as a family. Classes like Gymboree, where you always had a whole entourage. Mom and Dad and big sis Robin. 22 months later, despite my lack of approval, only at the time, Mom and Dad gave me another little brother, Jonathan. And once y'all were big enough to truly play together, the two of you were inseparable. One minute you boys would be fighting like no tomorrow, and the next back to best buddies. But more so, you both looked out for one another. To help alleviate some of the fighting, Mom taught me early on that sometimes it's just smarter to buy 2 things versus 1, so the boys wouldn't fight over it. A trick I have to say I still sometimes use in my house. Until you and Jay were old enough to object, Mom constantly dressed you the same. Heck, sometimes she even had me matching the 2 of you. For pictures, of course. But our little family was complete, and our childhood was about as perfect as one could ask for. We traveled as a family often, from Florida, Destin and the Breakers, to New Orleans, the sandy beaches, and adventures found on many Caribbean cruises, Disney trips, and skiing, just to name a few. We did it all as a family. And when we weren't traveling as a family, Dad was loading up you boys and going to Galveston or Rockport or Natural Bridge Caverns, the Texas State Railroad, the Hill Country, and anywhere in Texas you could drive, sometimes even beyond Texas, to places like Graceland. Boy, did you boys love a car adventure in Dad's gray minivan. Daniel loved it so much he begged our dad to keep it for him. Our parents gave us the world and would do anything for us, and together we really did do it all. You and Jonathan did sports together, went to camp together, adventures with Dad, camping, fishing, and more. And to me, you were both my little brothers. I loved you both, looked out for you boys, and I guess I felt like a second mommy to y'all. You both were there for every milestone in my life, even though I was so much older. I wanted a special connection with you and Jonathan as you grew older, and I was off in college. So I went back to Camp Champions to be a counselor and on staff so we could spend the summers together. And our summers there really were special. When you turned 15, Brian came into my life, and I remember watching the 3 of you play football on the front yard at Mom and Dad's house. You looked up to Brian and even talked about following in his footsteps for Purdue for college before deciding on the University of Alabama, which is a good thing because there would have been no national championships to celebrate from Purdue. Daniel was fearless. From a pretty young age, no roller coaster was fast enough, or hot sauce was hot enough, or meal big enough. In life, he would always do things big and never quite understood when to stop. He had a love for food and fancy meals. Disney and Space Mountain were also at the top of his list. On trips, if we would have let him, he probably would have gone on it time and time again. He was also quick to share his love for Disney with my kids on our family trip. Despite his desire to ride every roller coaster in all of the parks, he still met every princess with his niece and cherished the smile it brought to her face. While Daniel did everything in life big, he also loved big. He truly had a heart of gold. And despite his shortcomings, he would never want to hurt anyone. And if Daniel knew how much our family was grieving right now, he would be so mad at himself. Daniel loved all sports, but most of all, he loved Alabama football. Daniel was the first to find a way to attend a sporting event, no matter how big, including a few of Alabama's bowl games for the national championships. Or when he first moved to Los Angeles and the Dodgers played the Astros, Daniel was there. He didn't just attend. Somehow he basically ended up with seats right above the dugout and met people on the team. He probably schmoozed his way down. Daniel was quick to strike up a conversation with anyone in the room. He would tell you a witty one-liner and make you laugh. But it wasn't just sporting events that Daniel loved to attend. During the Democratic debate some years ago, he worked his way in and found a seat, a close-up seat. He even became a delegate at one of the Democratic conventions. But don't you worry for all the Republicans in the room. My brother was conflicted in so much in life, and at some point flip-flopped to become a Republican. But that was Daniel. He loved music shows, all kinds of music from early on. I convinced him to like country and a few select Fish songs. Then he moved on to rap and rock and roll and that DJ spinning stuff, and most recently went to see Bocelli at the Hollywood Bowl. During the days that followed, he and my dad went back and forth sharing opera songs they liked. Where there was fun and an event to be at, Daniel would be there. In 2017, when the Astros won the World Series, my brothers and I took my kids to the parade. Daniel was there to hoist Emma on his big shoulders and make sure she could see. And despite Daniel not being in the best of shape, he pushed that double stroller with Emma and Austin sleeping for a very long way back to find my dad's car because there were many street closures. He was there to help me with my kids, and on that day, I truly enjoyed his company. Daniel possessed the unique and quite possibly unparalleled ability to drive everyone around him crazy by repeating himself or arguing endlessly over the most obvious of facts. Sometimes it was because it was something he was passionate about, and other times, I think he did it just to argue. And Daniel could yammer with the best of the best. He could sell anything. That brilliant mind knew everything about anything he put his mind to. And if he was trying to sell you a speck of dust, he would find a way to convince you it was the best. He drove us all nuts at times, but we loved him unconditionally. He was just that kind of personality, so complex. And at the end of the day, my brother and my family were no different than you or yours, but Daniel had a disease, one that he did not ask to own, one that plagued him, one that for too long my family felt we had to live with in silence. But Daniel is not a statistic. He isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. He was a son and a brother. He was an uncle, nephew, grandson, and boyfriend. There's an unfortunate stereotype that addicts are deviants and don't engage in society, that they're dropouts, victims of poor upbringings, user in dark, dirty alleyways, are homeless, have a poor moral compass, are using by choice, and are without love and kindness in their lives, confined to the poorer areas and cities. But you see, this could not be further from the truth. Heroin and other opioid overdoses are the leading cause of preventable deaths in the United States, and addiction affects all walks of life. It does not discriminate. Heroin addicts come from families that are rich, poor, middle class. They are mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, and siblings. My brother suffered from an awful disease of an addiction, not a moral failing. Addiction is a crisis that has hit hard. Something triggered Daniel into the dark path of addiction. Our family never truly understood his trigger. We wished we did. We tried so fervently, wanted to help him, but not knowing what would set that trigger off only made the cycle of addiction worse. I guess you could say Daniel, like many, started using in his late teens, trying the small stuff and enjoying the way it made it feel. Daniel lacked much self-confidence, and using weed seemingly made him happy. But really, it wasn't until he was almost done with college, when he was prescribed oxycodone for falling down the stairs, along with other drugs for anxiety and sleep issues, that he got his taste of a true high. A doctor in Alabama overprescribed a college kid and quickly refilled a bottle a few weeks later. Then my brother needed the fix and started to doctor shop for more pills, all prescribed to him. Quickly, my parents saw Daniel spiraling out of control, and against his will, mere months, actually weeks before his college graduation, my dad went and brought him home to Houston, and he entered his first of many rehab programs. The painkillers for his back were his gateway drug. Like so many others, opened the door for Daniel. And when he relapsed after leaving rehab, later tried heroin. And once he did, he slipped farther and further away. Once he tried it, it was like a monster would take control of his mind, body, and soul. There are things that my family went through over the years of Daniel's addiction that are far too painful to recount. But let's just say, as a parent or a sibling, I wouldn't wish them on my worst enemy. But somehow, despite it all, my strong and supportive parents did everything in their power to help Daniel overcome this awful disease. They never, ever gave up on him, not once in the past 6.5 years. My poor, wonderful parents have been through the worst nightmare you could ever imagine, only to be left with the loss of their son. In the middle of the night on July 10th, Daniel lost his battle with addiction. Earlier in the week, Daniel got bit by a black widow spider while on the beach, which turned to a painful infection, then staph and MRSA. He described the pain to my father as a 10 out of 10. So once again, my brother turned to the only pain relief he had come to know to numb his pain. And on that night, we believe my brother was deceptively given fentanyl rather than his drug of choice. That night on his couch, sometime after midnight, when he last texted his girlfriend, he died of an accidental overdose. Daniel did not want to die, but his addiction was too strong. And if not that night, it was going to be another night, because every time he shot up, it was like playing Russian roulette. Daniel's life should not be defined by his addiction. He was a brother and an uncle, nephew, grandson, boyfriend, and my child's parent. But most of all, he was a human being. His addictive self was an alter ego he so desperately wanted to be without, but he didn't know how. And now he's gone. While none of us loved Daniel's disease, and at times it made it hard to love the alter ego that had become Daniel, we never stopped loving our boy. We never gave up hope that someday we would get our Daniel back. But the worry and anxiety that has consumed our family, knowing of Daniel's struggle for the past 6.5 years, has been replaced by a deep feeling of loss. Knowing we will never see his smiling face, hear his sweet words and nicknames, or feel his big bear hug embrace again. It pains me that my children won't grow up with Uncle Daniel. They truly loved him unconditionally. They didn't know his faults or judge him because of his addiction. To them, he was just Uncle Daniel, loud and effervescent, silly and clumsy, and Uncle Daniel. Daniel would call me and talk endlessly about his love for Amy and how badly he wanted a future and a family with her. He wanted to be a good man and make a family proud. He wanted to get it right and give up drugs. We all hoped that this love would be what would turn his life around, but the demons were just too strong. If there's something that can be learned from my brother's death, it is to consider empathizing with the countless number of people who are plagued with addiction, to look in their eyes and know that addiction is a disease, not a choice, and to lend a hand rather than push them further down a rabbit hole. More so, Empathize with the family of an addict. Don't talk behind their backs. Don't judge them, because the pain they are dealing with and the anguish of getting out of bed each and every day, not knowing when the ball will drop, is excruciating and agonizing. Show compassion and understanding of a disease that haunts thousands, and show the masses that the stigma attached to addiction is not true. Talk to your kids about addiction. Be open with the discussions you have, because my brother was just like anyone in this room. Show kindness to those who need it most, whatever they are suffering from, or a family member of an addict. Don't be quite so quick to judge, because sometimes you have no idea what really goes on with a family. But most of all, love big, like Daniel did. And maybe all of our kindness can help someone get the help they need and save one life from being ended, or another family from experiencing the pain that mine is going through. If this happens, then Daniel did not die in vain. Our worlds have truly been turned upside down with sadness and despair. Our lives are incomplete, and our hearts are broken and empty, missing our brother and son. There will be an emptiness in our home always, but especially at holidays, family celebrations, and birthdays. No family vacation will ever be the same without you there. But for today, despite all we have gone through in the past 6.5 years, we are shocked, empty, sad, and angry. But most of all, we will always love you and miss you with all our being. Daniel, I hope you know how much you were loved today, tomorrow, and for the rest of our lives, always.